All right. So my name is Louise Campbell Anthony. I am the affiliate director here with Peacekeeping Task Force. This is session 6 of our strategy task force session, and we are about to get started. Today is January 5th, 2025. Happy New Year. All right, so what I put in the chat there is 3 documents that we're going to be going over. Let me share my screen. All right. I'm going to open up the minutes here. So if any of you who are here who like to be on the strategy task force, just put your name in the chat. Any assemblies who are represented here, go ahead and put your name in the chat and your assembly that you're on. And I will gather those on the replay. Now, one thing that I forgot to do in last meeting that I want to make sure I do in this meeting is to put an invitation out for anyone who would like to take on a specific task. And the 2 tasks that we're going to need to take on is someone's going to have to keep a mapping of those assemblies who decide that they want to do the phase 1 approach. That's with the public meetings, just starting off with the public meetings. And we're going to monitor on that map which assemblies are doing that and which assemblies, what the progress is and what the challenges that they're experiencing. That will help us do our evaluations and make adjustments along the way. So we need a volunteer for that. Then we need a volunteer who would keep a map of those assemblies who choose phase 1 and 2. So we can monitor that progress and look at the map and see who's doing it and see what the report of the progress and the challenges that they are experiencing. That will help us do the evaluations of how we need to adjust as we go. So if you want to volunteer for that, go ahead and put your name in the chat. Phase 1A volunteer and a phase 1 and phase 2 volunteer. And all you're really doing is helping us keep track. You're going to keep that map and keep it current and updated and bring it to the meetings, and we're going to be doing the evaluations at the meetings. So I forgot to mention that last meeting. So that's the first thing I want to take care of. So the second thing here we're going to move to is, as I said, dual status as it relates to our rescue mission. Now let me open up our phase 5 interim report. Let me find it here. Now I sent this out for our phase 5 interim report for you all to prepare for today's meeting. And as I was going through all the things that we have been working on this past couple week or two, I was trying to prepare how we're going to launch all of the approaches that we have. And do you see on the number 1, I said, evaluate the impact and what is needed to launch all strategies at the same time to come from all angles. So let me make this a little bigger. So this is a diagram of the strategies that's a part of this resurgence project. The strategies that certain entities will have to execute. So on the right-hand side, you see the assemblies. The assemblies will be the ones to execute phase 1A, phase 1 and 2. That will be the assemblies executing that. But at the same time, we were talking about executing these strategies all at the same time so that we don't give the de facto enough room to try to target any one entity or any one assembly or thwart the plans of the postcards that goes out. So see, we have some phase 1 who's doing postcards, but phase 1A is not doing postcards. They're just going into the public meeting. So we have different approaches going at the same time, which minimizes the chances of them thwarting the plans that we have going on. And that's what we're discussing here right now, evaluating all these things that's going on at the same time and what order or outline for ourselves how we need to implement them. So we got the assemblies doing phase 1 and 2 and phase 1A. Then we have the peacekeepers, the elected peacekeepers executing phase 3. In phase 3, we have the liaisons, the militia commander, the county sheriffs, and the continental marshal. Now the peacekeepers doing phase 3, that's in the implementation guide phase 3, where they're going to be doing what we call security capital. And this is going to be in conjunction with the assemblies who's doing the phase 1 and 2. So the assemblies doing phase 1A don't necessarily have the peacekeepers in their assembly, the elected officers, to actually do phase 3. So that's why we created a specific phase just for those assemblies who are low in number and don't have the budget to be doing this, or maybe they just prefer to do that one anyway. Maybe they already have a county sheriff and don't need more, need to get someone elected in that county that has a capital. That might be a situation that they might be in, and they may not want to do the international public notice campaign. Because part of the international public notice campaign is to, yes, we're going to be informing the public of the crimes and the situations that they are in, but also it's an outreach strategy to get more people populated in the assembly to serve in the government positions. So that's another approach for phase 1 and 2. So phase 3, we have the militia commander, the liaisons, the county sheriff interacting at phase 3 with the elected officials counterparts on the de facto side. So we have the peacekeepers doing that in the background, while assemblies is also having their public meetings and issuing their international public notices. Then we have the Federation. Let's skip the Federation services part, because yes, that's all gonna roll out, but it's really not within the responsibilities of us as the strategy task force or as the assemblies, but it's part of the angles that we're coming from, which is the GFG and the physical offices that the liaisons are requested to have, the Regis locations. It's important. These two Federation services are important elements to our strategy working. That's why they're here. I'm going to go into more detail about those particular services in another presentation. So let's move over here to the Federation side. Now, while the assemblies are doing their thing, the peacekeepers are doing their thing, the Federation is going to be doing our thing. And in the Federation, we have two angles that's going on here. The PKTF Directorate is going to be the ones who execute the diplomatic immunity status recognition to the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Attorney General. The plan with that one is for the Directorate to actually initiate that conversation with the federal subcontractors, that counterpart for us. And then we also want to initiate a conversation here, the last one, the PKTF, the Fiduciary, and the 50 state assemblies. We talked about having, calling a meeting with our employees at the highest level that we can go, which is the U.S. military and Commander-in-Chief Trump and President of the United States Trump, Incorporated, that is. We need to have a conversation with them as well to talk, and from that level, we talked about needing that conversation so that we can negotiate on the deployment of the one fell swoop list of remedies that we had listed out. And also, I added something here that I'm going to go over here today. The negotiations one. This part right here that says negotiations, I added that section. That's part of the implementation guide. Let me show you where that is. In the implementation guide for the PKTF, it is, here, let me find it. Now you already have a copy of the implementation guide, but I'm going to show you where that section that I added, where it's located in the guide. So here where it has transference of government county tours, this section lists out specific things that we want the de facto to implement in their administrative processes. We're going to go more into detail here with this one. I added this because I think that conversation that we're having with Trump and the U.S. military is where these particular requests or requirements need to be made so that it can trickle down to their subordinates from that conversation already. Now, these particular demands, I'm calling them reform negotiations. That's what I'm calling them. And I'm calling them reform negotiations because we've been using that term government reform. Within the de facto, they can do a reform of how their government has been working and how it's been corrupt and broken. So I thought, well, why not call our demands reform? Because they know exactly what that means. So use the term. And if they're going to be saying that they're in the state of government reform, what better time than now for us as the employees to tell them and direct them what reforms we need them to make. So that's why I put this discussion up there with President Trump and the military. And with that meeting, we talked about each state also sending a representative to this meeting so that all 50 assemblies can be accounted for in these negotiations. Because it's not like they're just going to give us everything that we ask for. That's why I call it negotiations. And we're going to have to come up with some contingencies of when they don't do whatever it is that we're requiring them to do. And all of our voices as the Federation of 50 need to be heard and presented at that meeting. So let's go over these here now, because we haven't gone over it before here in this meeting. So let's go ahead and go over these. So I say here, articulate how the territorial municipal officers, employees, as well as commercial bank personnel who choose to remain in dual status will commit to the government reform actions that are needed to accomplish our transference of government or governance. That is the ultimate goal of this whole resurgence project, is for the de facto to transfer the control of the governance of our land and soil to the state assemblies, and recognize that we are the only government here in America. So what do we want them to do in their process of recognizing us? How are they going to change their administration activities in order to recognize us? And that's where these different requirements came from. And if you have more that you like to add, of course, I want to hear those. So the first one I have is parent corporations issue orders to require the state governors to send out official letters respective to our one fell swoop list of remedies we are making of the territorial and municipal subcontractors to their appropriate agencies and departments, and require them to immediately implement, require an answer in writing from them of how they intend to carry them out. Now, remember the one fell swoop list of remedies? That's up here. Let me go back up to the one fell swoop just to one fell swoop. I probably should just go to the top. One fell swoop list of remedies. Negotiate one fell swoop. So this is the one fell swoop list of remedies. This is the conversation we're having to de facto, the military and Trump. We're telling them every application of government services will be prepaid, zero-sum transaction on any application. So we're telling them in the transference of government listing that we want the federal subcontract at the top to issue orders to their subordinate governors to carry out these things. That's what I mean by parent corporation. I mean the U.S. military and the territorial and the municipal government, them at the top. Issue some orders down below so we can get this deployed more quickly, so that when our state assemblies go and to address them, which it won't be the state assemblies addressing them on this. It will be the peacekeepers addressing the governor on this matter. The assemblies will address the American public in the public meeting on this matter. So that's how the American public will find out about the one fell swoop. But the governor and the Secretary of State for the state is going to find out about the one fell swoop through the peacekeepers. And we all having this conversation actually at the same time. So we're not waiting for the territorial parent corporation to give us permission or to send out their letters. We're not waiting for them to do it. We're letting everybody know what we're requiring all at the same time, because that's how best to execute the strategy. We don't know how they're going to respond to us. So yes, so that's what I mean by parent corporation. So let me go back down to my list. Back up here. I have Americans don't have to wait till they fix their computers to catch up. So make it simple. That's why I put that there. If we're telling the American public that these are the one fell swoop list of remedies that we're negotiating on, we're putting that in their psyche, and we're giving them a declaration of land law and a criminal information notice of treason concerning these things, so they can start executing and requiring their remedies from their elected officials, de facto elected officials, while we are having the negotiation with them from the top, saying you all need to deliver this to the American people. So we're squeezing in on both sides is what I'm envisioning. This is happening all at the same time. Put American State National in your databases under the category for citizenship and have the system label us exempt from payment of anything to receive governmental or public services, because we have a debt credit system. The reason they're operating is because they're operating on our credit. Not to mention that a lot of these things have been paid for by the donor trust as well. So that's why it should be in your system. American Nationals already paid you, so we're exempt. Stop broadly misaddressing Americans as any type of U.S. U.S. or U, capital S citizen. When an American show you their credential card, you know your municipal or corporate codes don't apply to him or her. Now you can see why I'm wording these particular things, because these are the challenges that we have every day when we are interacting with the de facto on some level. They're misaddressing us and they're not recognizing our status. So this is the government reform we need them to do. There are 3 citizenship categories of your databases, for your databases. U.S. U.S. citizenship by fully disclosed contract under an employment or a license agreement, and American State National or citizen status, and 14th Amendment citizens by registrations, by birth registrations do not exist, because we're outlawing that. That's what one of our declarations is for. So 14th Amendment, not to mention that it wasn't ratified by the states of the Union anyway, but it's a corporate constitution anyway. So if you want to have a 14th Amendment corporate bylaw, then I guess you can have it, but it cannot, and we will not allow it to exist under birth registration requirements, because that's peonage, slavery, and that's outlawed. So 14th Amendment municipal citizenship can be allowed only if born in Washington, D.C., and if the municipal citizen is employed under the the municipal constitution, can be accepted. If you are a post office employee, you are a municipal citizen, we'll accept that one. If you were born in Washington, D.C., in that jurisdiction, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which is what that 14th Amendment says, that's what makes you subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The jurisdiction they're talking about is Washington, D.C. You were born there, then I guess you can, that's the situation you're in. All county recording offices will record American State Nationals declarations and any other paperwork. Now, it was the county recording offices who have the responsibility of recording all these documents that we record on the land. I know we talked about, or some people, I know in our assembly, we talked about county reporting offices, establishing those. But from my point of view, I think we need to make them record like they're supposed to be recording. So any documents they're supposed to be recording, that's the job that they actually have. So in the Resurgence Project, we're trying to make the de facto do their job. If they're going to be our subcontractors, at least for now, we're going to be assessing the jobs that they should be doing and requiring them to do it and monitoring them if they do it, and we have to have some type of repercussions if they don't. Once an American identifies him or herself as such, your office will provide him with terms of full disclosure identifying his or her relationship to your office, such that he is not prejudicing his right to contract. This one may sound a little fuzzy, but what I was trying to get through with this one, or get to with this one, is protecting our right to contract. Any American state national can contract to be a U.S. citizen. They need to know in full disclosure in that contract they're putting their autograph on, what does this mean in this contract? What are you giving up? That's what I'm trying to get to with this state. And some things you in transition, while we're in transition, some types of contracts may we may have to enter into them, but we still want to know what we're giving up. That little fine print, we want it in big print. All dual status employees will understand that they are required to abide by their corporation's terms of employment policies regarding corporate citizenship and upholding the Bill of Rights protected under the Constitution for American state nationals. So what I'm getting to here is we need dual status citizens or dual status personnel working in the territorial or working in the municipal to keep things moving. So what we're requiring them to do is to train their employees to understand the terms of their employment. Now, if they're one of the postal service person, they need to understand that they may need to do some things that their corporate policies, their corporate constitution requires them to do. And because you decided you want to be employed by them, you have to abide by that. But at the same time, if you're still in your American state nationals capacity and you haven't signed a contract with them, those employees, those municipal and territorial employees, must uphold the Bill of Rights that guarantee you your sovereign rights. They need to be trained on this. Require all mail to be delivered to a rural route address outside of the military zip code districts. I didn't know exactly the right terminology for that, but I know rural route is what we're looking for, and military zip code districts is not what we're looking for. That's how they communicate between themselves. But if we need to have a route for us. And I remember when the rural routes changed to I have rural route 4, but it changed to 1369 East Central. I remember that changing. So what I'm trying to get through with here in their government reform activities and that their administration, they need to still recognize the rural routes because that's where they live. So we need to be able to communicate and we need to be able to get mail. Allocate office space in our public government buildings, Capitol building, courthouses from which to run our American government services. Does the state assembly need to draft some type of agreement for this? Which they might have to, but still, this is a reform we're requiring. Those are all our buildings. Actually, if it's not one of those conclaves or the military or something like that, or for the post office, I think there was supposed to be a certain part of the land and soil that was designated for post offices. But outside of those things, those buildings is our buildings. They need to allocate some space in those buildings for us, and we need to allocate some space for them while they're still our employees. So this is where I'm getting to with this particular demand is where, make our space. And this gives the message to the public that there are two entities here, the American government and the United States government, that's operating, and there is a difference. But if when we can get them to recognize that and give us access to our office space, then we can actually do our jobs much better. So these is what I call our government reform negotiations. These are the same. This is the list of things that I want us to have a conversation with President Trump in that meeting with the state assemblies, the 50 state assemblies represented, and our fiduciary and the director. Coming from all those angles, I want you to envision this with me. We got the assemblies coming from the position of the American public, speaking to the American public. We got the peacekeepers speaking to the elected officials of that American public on the state level. Then we have the peacekeeping task force, the fiduciary, the directorate, speaking to the head of all that federal subcontractor conglomerate of state subordinates. So we're coming and approaching all of this all together at the same time. One is not waiting on the other. There's no telling how this is all going to pan out and who's going to which governor or which conversation or negotiation may come through or not. There's no way of us knowing that. And we don't want to wait on anything. And I think it's important that all the entities know at the same time. The public needs to know at the same time. The elected officials need to know at the same time. And the federal, the territory, and the municipal parent corporation need to know at the same time what we are requiring. What I wanted us here to do today is look at that and think about what we need to do to launch all of this at the same time. Now, in that second document I put in the chat, I just started creating it here today. I mean, not today, when a couple weeks ago. The second document in the chat, I tried to start outlining some of the things that we need to prepare before any of us is able to execute any of this. So let's go to this document here that's in your chat. So that's the note. Let's go to this document here that's in your chat. It's called a strategy task force. Oh, let me go get it. Section 6, strategic solutions video proposal. That's what it's called. Strategic solutions proposal. The chart on here looks a little different. It's more filled out, but I'm not gonna go into all that because it looks a little different. But that first line, this first line here, this first line, this first arch, is the same arch that's on the interim report that I sent out. It's just in the opposite order. I thought it was better to put it in the opposite order when I started putting this particular document together. Now, this document here is the document that I am preparing to do a presentation, a full presentation on the entire project of what we have right now and present it to Anna and the assemblies. So the first arch here, as we were going through all the different angles and approaches, I started outlining at the bottom what preparations we need to make. So at the bottom here, so the next steps. So I'm going to present the whole project, or prepare a whole presentation for it. I hope to have it ready within the next week or two. The whole outline and execution of the the American Government Resurgence Project, the entire project. How do we prepare to put the assemblies, the peacekeepers, and the Federation in place to execute this? So my next steps, this is the evaluation I want us to think about. What are our next steps in order to prepare everybody to do this? I said, need a meeting with President Trump and the U.S. military to negotiate the one fell swoop list of remedies and the administrative changes. I call it calling them to the carpet. So that's first, that's the next step. We would have to need to call that meeting and get that meeting set up. Now, to prepare for that meeting, the next step, the next outline here, need meeting with all American government parties who will attend the above meeting to devise our approach to making our requests and outlining what our contingencies will be. So while we're trying to get that meeting with Trump, we need to start having a meeting with the PKTF directorate, the fiduciary, and those 50 state assemblies representatives, talk about what we're going to talk about at the meeting when we get it with Trump. So we can figure out what we're going to be saying, what we're going to be asking for, and what contingency will be when they say, no, we can't do that. We need to have that conversation among ourselves before we have this conversation with Trump and the military. The next thing we need to do, I'm thinking, we may need public laws passed by the 50 state assemblies to outlaw birth registrations and bonding people, like we did with COVID vaccines, patent ownership claims. If we can't apply the public law we already passed, we're going to get into this one in our next discussion. Not our next discussion, but right after this, number 2, we're going to get into public laws if we need one. So if we can't use the public law we have now, which I really think we can, if we can't use it, we need to talk about if we need to pass a public law in order for us to implement those declarations, the Declaration of Land Law for the birth registrations and the Declaration of Land Law for the Federal Reserve notes. So we need to entertain that possibility, which would go to Anna first, the fiduciary first, to ask if we need a different public law, or even if we need a public law in the first place in order to issue these declarations. We need the 2 declarations edited and signed by the fiduciary. Declare the declaration for the birth registration to become outlawed as human trafficking, and the declaration for the FRNs to become outlawed for consumer credit theft, monopoly. That one's already illegal, so I don't even think we might need a public law for that one. But still, both of those declarations need to be reviewed by our fiduciary or our living law firm, and they need to be signed by the fiduciary. For me, autographs on the document, wedding signatures on the document is important to prove its authenticity and its credibility. So the declarations that I want to be part of this resurgence project, I want them signed or autographed. Then also the criminal information notice of treason need to be edited and signed by the state assembly. Now the fiduciary or the Federation, the fiduciary office is issuing the declarations, the 2 declarations. So those are the ones, so those 2 will be signed by our fiduciary. The criminal information notice of treason is going to be issued by the state assembly. So those need to be signed by whoever the state assembly's representative, their chairman, or the militia commander, or whoever it is that the state assembly indicates that needs to sign it. We need that edited and then signed. And again, that would be our fiduciary office or our or the living law firm, because these are legal and lawful documents that need to be worded the correct way. I created them, but I'm not legal or lawful counselors and none of that. I just know a little. I'm pretty sure they need to be changed. We need training series for the peacekeeping officers that's called upon in phase 3. And this is where our executive secretary, the PKTF executive secretary come in. That's Boyd Adams. He's planning some training sessions for the peacekeeping officers of how to interact with the de facto. Now he's already started those training sessions. But we will specifically, we definitely need to create a training series for the militia commander, the county sheriffs, the continental marshals, and the PKTF liaisons to work as a team in executing phase 3 to secure the capital. We need a whole training series put together for that specific job and that specific focus. They need to know what documents they need to have in hand. They're going to have to take the declarations and the criminal information notice of treason with them. They need to have the declaration of provenance. And I'm sure they know their job, so they know what other things they need to take, such as the contracts themselves, the constitutions, the elected. I know, I think Militia Commander Adam Bonner said that it was a smoother interaction for him to show that he was elected by the people on the land and soil jurisdiction. So maybe they need to show their the proof of their elected position. Things like that, where we can train the peacekeepers on what to take and how to approach in the security capital whole project mission. We separated it into 3 graduated phases, where the first interaction would be the PKTF liaison and militia commander to address the governor, address the county sheriffs. It would be just that group. That group right there, job is to establish the jurisdictional difference, establish the employee-employer relationship. That's what that first interaction's intent is to do. Then the second line to come in with the interaction, then this when the county sheriffs come in, where we start talking about the declarations and the criminal information, notice of treason. How are we going to be presenting that part at that second level now that we've established who we are and given you some information, some historical information and evidence? We've established that. Now we need to come in and say, this is what we're requiring you to do now with the declarations and the negotiations, and raising that peace flag and giving us that billboard in the courtyard that says correct your political status. Now we're going to come in with some requirements. So that's where the county sheriffs come in at. And then we take it up a notch where the continental marshals come in, where we have to start taking names now of those people who are not sitting down to have these conversations with us. Because I imagine the militia commander or the liaison is going to be addressing or trying to call or trying to meet, and they may not respond. We're going to, at this training session, we have to talk about how this graduated effort will proceed. When will we know to go ahead to call in the county sheriffs and go to move on, and then go to the continental marshals, call them in and move on? When will we know how to process this through? At what point should we move ahead? So that's what this training is for, that our executive secretary, Boyd Adams, is going to put together for that phase 3 security capital. Then we need the training put together, which I guess that's going to be me, put together for the assemblies, 2 separate trainings. The training that's for phase 1A, just the public meeting, and the training for phase 1 and 2. I guess these actually can be the same because it's not too big of a difference. This could be the same training to speak to both assemblies, depending on which approaches they take. So we do need a training for the assemblies as well. And the international outreach think tank talked about the need to standardize what these assemblies are going to be saying in their town meetings. And that's what prompted this whole phase 1A, because we felt it necessary and needed. And some assemblies didn't feel like they was ready to address the public on this? What do they say? Or, you know, so that's what this assembly, this training will be for the assemblies. Then the next one, next steps to prepare, the PKTF directorate need to meet on this specific agenda, this specific mission on how we are going to approach the U.S. State Department, and the U.S. Attorney General on the diplomatic immunity status request. How are we going to approach them on that? Who's going to be making the calls? What are we going to say in these meetings? Who do we need to contact? So we need to get together on this one. The diplomatic immunity status, we're asking them. It sounds like a simple thing. Here, let me go to it. Sounds like a simple thing, but I know it's not as simple as it sounds. Let me see if I can go up here. Diplomatic immunity status. We're going to be asking them in this outline here in this part. We're going to be asking them for the recognition. Let me see if I can read a little part. Okay, and this is my angle with it. The Federation, so the U.S. Department of State is responsible for citizenship matters. The Federation, which would be the Directorate, maybe the Continental Marshal, will have a sit down with the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Attorney General to address the fact, as their employers, that they maintain errors on their public records regarding the political status of American state nationals. Now, in their system, and I stated it up here, in their system, it said federal, state, and local agencies are required to maintain correct public records according to their laws. In their system, they cannot have errors in their public record. So the angle I want to come from is, I'm going to continue reading here. We are non-citizen nationals, true, non-citizen nationals. They have that as a category for passport purposes. Non-citizen nationals, we're born on several states, on the several states, not in a U.S. outlying possession. Now, according to their passport definition of non-citizen nationals, they only recognize United States nationals who are born on the U.S. outlying possession territories. That's the ones they recognize. Well, we want just for them to add in their definition, American state nationals born on the several states of the Union. Can y'all do that? It's a simple ask, but no telling what kind of kickback we're gonna get. Because your public records are incorrect. Your definition does not include the American state national non-citizen nationals. So that's what we're going to be trying to get accomplished. The Directorate is trying to get accomplished with the U.S. Department of State when it comes to the passport. I think the passport office is where we get American state national, that term, that definition recognized at that level. Then that can trickle down to the subordinates. I think it's a critical and strategic move to hit that department with this particular matter. Since it says in their records, they're responsible for citizenship matters. So we have to talk to them. All right. Let's go back down to the rest of our steps. So the Directorate gets have our meeting to decide how we're going to be approaching the U.S. State Department. And then the last thing here is we need volunteers. I'm constantly reaching out to different people who may be able to help and assist in the different aspects to the research project. Now, these list of volunteers that I listed here are specifically have to do with the second arch. This one here. This arch up here. This is a network of web properties, websites that are very important in our resurgence project. So next steps too is getting assistance, some skilled assistants who can help actually design and deploy these websites. The main one that we're going to start with is the official branded government websites. And we talked about I talked about the government websites with the PKTF directorate. I'm not sure if let me tell you what that looks like. Government websites. This is what I got so far with the government website. Our official government website, which I need volunteers for. I just reached out to a volunteer, I had a meeting yesterday, who's going to be helpful and said yes, they'll help with these websites that I have envisioned for our resurgence project. And the first main one would be the American government website, the official American government website. This is the website where we will identify who we are. We have our 50 Republican states here on the left. We have our Federation of 50 Nation States here in the middle. And on the right, we have our subcontracted services. I think we'll move for us to have a website. We have them listed on it as our employees. That is the message that I want the American public to see when they come to our official American government website. We want the American we want the American public to know about these flags. We want them to know about these seals. We want them to know that this all belongs to us. And we're going to be bold enough to plaster it on an official government website. So this is one of the properties that I'm going to need to get some help in deploying this one. And the government library, that's where I'm going to pull together our resources that we've been developing, where people, the American public, can come and learn the history and see what the assemblies are doing and all that. And these are the different tabs that I have slotted for it right now, where we're going to have our town hall forum, the 24-hour forum that we're talking about developing, and the All States Assembly forum that Amethyst is doing, which she only does it that 2-hour slot, but she's dedicated to doing that. It has a lot of information in it, and I think she should have that one should have its own section. We have the glossary where they can go to anna.com, and then the other website that was built to put up the dates and the articles and the vocabulary, that website, the newsletter, the podcast that we are doing, United States of America, the Some Assembly Required, all that's going here. So in this government library, it's actually where all of our resource and information is going to be pulled together all in one spot, so people can come here and learn. Now, this is the official American government website. The other aspect to this, when I say government websites, every state and every county needs a government website. And let me articulate what I mean by that. Most of all the assemblies have websites. Even the Federation has a website, but they are educational websites. A government website, when you go to the de facto government websites, they're talking about the services that they're providing for the people. We need a government website that looks like a government website, where we identify what services we have, which is all the 4 pillars, all of our committees, our agendas, our minutes, our calendar. That's what a government website looks like. And yes, you can have the education tab on there, clicks out to the other educational website that you have now. But if we're trying to let the recognition from the American public as America's only government, we have to have a government website that's easily navigable. I want these websites to be simple enough that they'll easily see that we are protecting the people and their assets. That's the message these websites need to say. Protecting you and your assets. So, and on the State Assembly website, I think it's a bold move and a strategic move to put their contracted service providers on their website as well, which would be the say in Illinois would be the Illinois governor and their services, or Illinois.gov websites. We want to broadcast the message that we are the employers and they are the employees. What better way to do it than that? And that will also, I'm hoping to prompt some communication, some feedback, some interaction from their part saying, hey, yeah, we need to talk because my constituency just asked me or told me or whatever. Those conversations are going to be from their constituency because they have a tendency to say my constituents, calling everybody their constituency. So I'm expecting that these government websites will prompt some conversation and apply some pressure to them to start this discussion. Now, there is some branding that has to be done. I said brand these sites. So we have to decide if we're going to use .land, .us, .gov, .land. Those types of things will be part of the conversation. So that the volunteers that are needed, they will be helping me to develop all of these websites here at the top. And the website network, the purpose of it is to brand us as a Federation of 50 in the public's eyes, because websites are our storefront, and broadcast the message that we are the employees and that we are doing our job as the employees by monitoring our subcontractors and requiring them to protect your rights under the Bill of Rights and protect your rights as under the rights to contract with full disclosure. Those are the rights that we're protecting for you. And we have to demonstrate that at our websites. So that's the list of steps I think are the next steps that we need to do to get prepared to come and execute all those strategies from the different angles. Now, if you can think of, can you think of anything at this point, steps that we can take or any other angle that need to be added? No, okay. So I'm going to now shift gears to the second thing in the agenda, the minutes. Well, we did the outline preparations needed to launch. I did that, but evaluate the public laws addition to the phase 1 implementation guide for state assemblies. So the public laws. Now, let me go here to, we're going to go to phase 1A. Oh, hold on. Where's the interim report? Let's go to the interim report. And here are the three public laws that we've already passed. I want to evaluate the language of these public laws to explain if and how they support the 2 declarations for birth registrations and Federal Reserve notes. Let me open the first public law here first, because I think this one actually addressed our birth registration declaration. Let's read what our declaration says, just the part about the birth registration. Let me read it. The declaration. Now, regarding the birth registration, it says, we declare that the act of registering the birth of a baby with the intent of bonding the soul as a slave and or indentured servant, as chattel property, as a commodity to be bought and sold on the stock market to pay the debts of commercial corporations, are in fact and in law, in all jurisdiction, the crime of human trafficking. Now we know that's what we've been calling the birth registration human trafficking. That's what Anna has taught us in the research. That's what it is. All right, so let's look and see what the public law says. Now this is the first public law the state assemblies have already passed. Public Law A1010121. Now the first 3 paragraphs speaks to me as appropriate. Now, the last couple of weeks, it came to my mind that maybe we might need a public law in order to issue a declaration like this. Let me go back and see what the public laws are that we already passed. And I discovered, wow, this sounds like what we're trying to do already. We've already done this. So let's go over the first 3 paragraphs. Now, this public law was passed in relationship to the COVID vaccine, the agenda of them trying to copyright human beings, own human beings, because they have a snippet of this copyrighted serum in their bodies. That's why this public law came up. But listen what it says here in these first 3 paragraphs. It is hereby declared and recorded as public law of the United States of America that no person or person or person, that's all 3 jurisdictions right there, land and soil, the sea jurisdiction, and the municipal maritime jurisdiction or global jurisdiction of any kind, so no jurisdiction of any kind shall in any respect claim to have any commercial or trade ownership interest in a living man or woman, baby, boy, or girl by any means at all. I said, that's it right there. That's what we're trying to do. We've passed the public law to outlaw what I already said in the declaration. Then it says, relabeling living men or women by the use of other descriptions such as male and female, or via their acceptance of professional or other titles, or via their enrollment in offices of citizenry or personhood, shall not be used to confer undisclosed obligations upon them, nor shall any such means be used to convert the nature of living people so as to excuse their abuse as animals or inanimate things. 14th Amendment citizenship out the door. It's already outlawed. And the third one that I thought it really encapsulates everything that I visioned when it came to me thinking about outlawing birth registrations. It says in the 3rd paragraph, this prohibition established as public law restricts the use of copyrights, trademarks, and patents to establish ownership interests in living things. And in particular, now this is and in particular forbids the use of patents to create or enforce any commercial or trade ownership in living as genetic modified organisms. Now, it's in particular. That's why Anna presented us with this particular public of the COVID vaccines. But all the wording and word choice vocabulary prior to saying genetic modified organism is birth registration. Do y'all see what I'm seeing? That's how I interpret this public law. It looks like we already have a public law that outlawed birth registrations, and all we're doing then now with the declarations and the criminal information notice of treason is bringing forth our public law that we've already passed. And we have everybody on board to do it. We have the assemblies coming from their angle. We have the Peacekeeping coming from their angle. and we have the Federation PKTF Directorate coming from their angle to bring into fruition and enforce the public law that we've already passed. Now, if I'm misinterpreting, or if I'm not really, if my interpretation of this doesn't apply to birth registrations, you got to tell me, because it looks like it applies to birth registrations to me. So when I was thinking we might need a public law to execute those declarations, I think this one is the appropriate one to support the declaration of land law to outlaw birth registrations. Of course, I'm going to get this verified by our fiduciary, but that's what I think. This is powerful. We've already passed this public law. What do we do after we pass a public law? What does the de facto do after they pass a public law? There is an enforcement clause. We need to start doing some enforcing on the public law we already passed, and attacking and focusing on that birth registration is where I think we can strategically start. Now, the second one, the other two public laws here, which we've already passed, I'm going to open those up. Now, I said, well, we got that one. That one, that public law does address the birth registrations with its language. What about the other public laws? Will they address the Federal Reserve notes with its language? I was like, well, if it does, that's cool. So let's go see what that one says. It's these two here. Let me get rid of this one. Okay. So the state assemblies actually passed two public laws together. It was Public Law A 1010124 and Public Law A 1010224. Now, these are a bit longer. But these two public laws are addressing the credit and the Federal Reserve notes. I think these two public laws are the supporting documents for the declaration against the Federal Reserve notes and the criminal monopoly. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. This is the first one that was passed. It is hereby declared and recorded that all indebtedness of the United States of America Incorporated and the United States of America Incorporated debts of the former U.S.A. Corporation, United States Corporation, and all and any foreign corporations doing business under deceptive names so as to fool people into thinking that these were debts of our nation states are debts in fact owed by these corporations to our states and people. This pertains to the recoupment of all private assets that were unlawfully and illegally used as chattel backing the spending and criminal activities of these corporations from 1860 onward. These debts are inclusive of, but not limited to, the war debts for the American Civil War, the so-called First World War, Second World War, and all other wars that have, in fact, been mercenary conflicts waged by these criminal corporations using our money and manpower under false pretenses for their own profit and gain. We have claimed the entire debt of all these rogue corporations and cured our claim on a global basis, and we have foreclosed on them and their 63 central banks, including the so-called Global Federal Reserve and all their franchises. Now, as you go through and read all of this, it says it is our intent to return the property to the rightful owners. Go through and read all of this. You will see how the credit that's connected to those Federal Reserve notes have already been claimed back. All their actions that they're continuing to do with these Federal Reserve notes in circulation we've already got a public law against them continuing to use our credit to fund and back their Federal Reserve notes. to pay their corporate debts. So as long as these Federal Reserve notes are in circulation, it is the evidence that they are still using our credit, especially if they're not having a conversation with us. We've already demanded they give it back. We already demanded they stop using our credit. So it's time for us to bring these public laws and to enforce them. Now let's read the second one, just a little part of it. We here declare and record the eternal maxim of law, that no thing is greater than its creator, and we align our public law with this maxim and declare and enroll it upon our federal record, such that no corporation operating on our land and soil or in our names or with any presumption of a public or private interest in us or anything of ours at all, which they're claiming. Every time there's a circulation of Federal Reserve notes, you're claiming that you have some private interest in everything and anything that we have, including our good names, will be immune to any prosecution for harm done to living or their property, assets, and interests. So we're telling them you don't have, as long as you're claiming to have interests, public and private interests in our names and our properties, there is no immunity for you. So our criminal information notice of treason, that's where this come in at. You have no immunity. You're still doing what you're not supposed to be doing. You're still claiming interest in our property, in our credit. So this is how we're bringing forth this public law with our criminal information notice of treason. So as I was reading these two public laws, I'm like, oh, we've already got public laws to back what we've decided to do already. And it's probably just the inspiration that's coming, that's piecing these things together. Now, I'm misinterpreting these two public laws that by saying they do apply to the Federal Reserve note criminal fraud of credit theft. Let me know, because I see that they do. Of course, I'll get it all validated from our fiduciary, but that's what it looks like to me. This is our way. This is our time and our right to bring forth these public laws and enforce them. And in the Resurgence Project, with those two declarations of land law and the criminal information notice of treason, backs what we've already said, passed as law, according to how I'm interpreting all of this. Now, if they don't, if I'm misinterpreting them, then I think we might need a public law. But I think we're spot on with this. Anybody see it any different than what I'm seeing it as? Okay. I see you shaking your heads. Okay. All right, so those elements are what I have here on the agenda today. That's pretty much what I want to cover. So our next steps is what we're going to be focusing on here next, on how to get all of the entities, the assemblies, the peacekeepers, the Federation, how to get all of us ready to launch this. Now, the international think tank has been anxious to get things launched. I've been anxious to get things launched, but it seems like to me, the delay in the launch has served to our benefit, because now that things are coming together and more things are being added to make what initially we were just thinking of just sending out postcards to let people know, but it's bigger. It's a bigger, more far-reaching outreach than just that now, and it takes some preparation from all of our part in order to make this strategy work as effective as it can work. Because I don't think there's anything missing. No one has said that they think anything is missing. They like the international public notice, starting off with that. Now let me back up. there's only two things missing that I'm going to mention, which we're not going to take care of anytime here near future, because we need to get this launched. But there's two things missing that I'm going to mention here. Now I'm gonna go back. I already wrote it in our in the document that I did send you, the American Resurgence document. There's two things missing that needs to be added and will be added. And I've been talking about it with the PKTF directorate too. And I put it here in the conclusion. It says the two things that are missing that the strategy task force will address at a later date. It says, we will add a strategy to rein in all these criminal corporations like commercial banks, government services corporations, NGOs, private sector corporations. Now that our fiduciary has nationalized all corporations who do business on our land and soil. I don't know what nationalize means, but this is another aspect to our resurgence that we need to address, and that is corrupt corporations as an entity. We need to rein them in. So we need a strategy for that. So that's going to be added to the Resurgence Project. And the second thing that needs to be added officially to the project is we need to build a network of alliances who are promoting the same work we are doing and solicit them to join the mission. Those people we know of, like the Constitutional Sheriff Organization or the Thick Red Line Organization, or even those we had treaties with, like the Moorish Americans, the tribal nations. I shouldn't call them tribes, the Native nations. All those alliances that we need to build networks with to join the mission, that needs to be added to the Resurgence Project. So those are the two things right now that I think need to be added to make this a complete approach of restoring restoring America's only government. And that's how I like to say it, America's only government. But for now, we're not going to be dealing with those two. We're going to just try to launch the project as it is right now. So in my next step here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this document video presentation here ready. You all go ahead and read over it. Here, let me go. You all go ahead and read over it the next week or two. This document here. I'm going to create a presentation for the entire document for the Resurgence Project and present it to the fiduciary and to the state assembly coordinators to take it back to their state assemblies. Because we're at that point now. I think all the pieces are there. I don't think the International Outreach Think Tank can think of anything else, or the Strategy Task Force, so y'all can think of anything else. I don't know if we missing anything. But yeah, so I think it's ready now that I can go ahead and do a presentation for the whole thing. I'm going to try to get it ready within the next week or two. I'm going to send it out, send you all a link to it, and have you all look over it and tell me what you think. I'm going to send out the document. This document is probably going to be edited a little bit more. You got the first draft of it. It's probably going to be edited a little bit more. So when I finalize it, I'm going to be finalizing it as once I complete the presentation, the video presentation. I'm going to send out both of those things. And if you look at the document, it has all of the reference materials here at the bottom. All the reference materials here at the bottom, this reference that I'm going to attach to the document as well. So it's going to be a complete presentation of what this Resurgence Project is. And from this point where I presented it, after I presented it to everybody, we'll get to see which assemblies want to phase 1, which assembly wants to do phase 1A, and start our training, get our training set up for all the assemblies, for the peacekeepers. That's what's going to happen after I get this presentation together. You all have any questions or comments that y'all like to say at this point before we end our meeting? So we have next meeting will be January 19th. January 19th, same time. All right. Anything else? All right. All right, so that's will be the end of our meeting here. Thanks for coming. If you have any questions, any inspirations, any other angles to layer on, email me. Let me know if we forgot anything. Okay? All right. Thank you. Bye now. Stop my screen share.